I stood in our sunlit kitchen that Tuesday morning, my phone warm in my hand, rehearsing the words I'd say to test my husband's loyalty. The coffee maker gurgled behind me, filling our home with that familiar morning smell. And I had no idea that my silly little prank was about to crack open a truth so devastating it would shatter 12 years of marriage in less than an hour. Have you ever pulled back a curtain expecting to find dust, only to discover your entire foundation was rotting underneath? Marcus, I need to talk to you about something serious, I whispered to my empty kitchen, practicing the lie that would reveal the biggest truth of my life. Before we begin, sweetheart, if this story touches you even a little, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I love knowing where my family is tuning in from. My name is Keisha, and for 12 years, I thought I knew exactly who I'd married. Marcus and I met at a community college in Atlanta back in 2011. I was studying to be a dental hygienist, working nights at a diner to pay my tuition, and he was finishing up his business degree with dreams bigger than both of us combined. He had this smile that could light up a whole room, you know? The kind that made you feel like you were the only person who mattered when he looked at you. We were both scrambling to build something out of nothing, both raised by single mothers who taught us that hard work was the only ladder out of struggle. I still remember the first time he came into that diner where I worked. It was a Thursday night, late shift, and the place was practically empty except for a few regulars nursing their coffee at the counter. Marcus walked in wearing a backpack and this determined expression, sat down at booth 7, and spread out what looked like half his textbooks across the table. I walked over with my order pad, and before I could even say my usual greeting, he looked up at me and said something that still makes me smile to this day. "I'm going to marry you someday. But first, can I get a coffee and whatever pie you think I should try?" I actually laughed out loud. That's quite an opening line. Does it usually work? I don't know. I've never used it before. Something about you just made me want to put it out there into the universe. And somehow, impossibly, 3 years later, we were standing in my mama's backyard saying vows. Our wedding day was perfect in all the ways that matter, even if it wasn't fancy. Mama had strung up lights between the trees, and my cousin Deshawn played guitar while I walked down the aisle between 2 rows of folding chairs. I wore a simple white dress from a department store, and Marcus wore the one good suit he owned. And when he saw me coming toward him, he cried. We wrote our own vows. I still remember what he said to me that day, standing there with his hands shaking as he held mine. Keisha, you are my safe place in a world that's always been hard. You see me not for what I have or what I might become, but for who I am right now. I promise to be your partner in everything. I promise that your dreams will matter as much as mine. I promise that when life gets hard, we'll face it together. And when life is good, we'll celebrate it together. You'll never walk alone again. Funny how promises can sound so beautiful when they're made, and so hollow when they're broken. The first few years were exactly what we'd promised each other. We lived in a tiny one-bedroom apartment with paper-thin walls where we could hear our neighbors' conversations. Our furniture was a mix of thrift store finds and hand-me-downs from family. We had one TV, one car between us, and dreams that felt bigger than our reality, but somehow still achievable. When Marcus lost his first job out of college, 6 months after we got married, I picked up extra shifts at the dental office where I'd started working. I'd work 10-hour days, come home exhausted, and he'd have dinner waiting, even if it was just ramen noodles dressed up with whatever vegetables we could afford. "I'm going to make this up to you," he'd say. "When I get back on my feet, I'm going to spoil you so good, baby." But I didn't need spoiling. I just needed him to keep trying, keep showing up, keep being my partner. And he did, for a while. Marcus landed a job at a logistics company, started in sales, and worked his way up steadily. He was good at it too, charismatic, driven, the kind of person who could convince anyone of anything. I should have paid more attention to that last part. Meanwhile, I built my career at Dr. Patterson's office. Dr. Patterson was this gentle, older man who'd been practicing dentistry for 30 years. He took a chance on me when I was fresh out of school, trained me personally, and over 8 years, I became not just an employee, but almost like family to him and his wife, Mrs. Patricia. I loved my job. There's something deeply satisfying about helping people overcome their fear of the dentist, about being the calm, reassuring voice that makes children brave enough to sit in that chair. I'd built real relationships with our patients, knew their families, remembered their stories. Dr. Patterson would sometimes tell me I was the heart of the practice. Keisha, I've had 5 hygienists in my career, and you're the only one who treats every patient like they're your favorite person in the world. That's a gift. I felt valued there, appreciated, seen, which made it all the more crushing when my own husband stopped seeing me at all. 3 years ago, we bought our house. It was the biggest thing we'd ever done, the most adult we'd ever felt. A modest 3-bedroom ranch in a neighborhood where kids still played kickball in the street and neighbors actually knew each other's names. We painted the walls together, argued over furniture placement, planned which room would eventually be a nursery. We talked about kids constantly. Marcus wanted 2, I wanted 3, and we compromised by saying we'd see how we felt after the first one. We were going to start trying next year, once we hit our savings goal of $15,000 in our emergency fund. We were being responsible, practical, doing everything right. But somewhere around 6 months ago, things started changing in ways I told myself were normal. We're just stress. We're just life. Marcus started working later. At first, it was just 1 or 2 nights a week. Big project, he'd text. Don't wait up. Then it became 3 nights, then 4. Then most nights, he wasn't walking through the door until 9 or 10 o'clock. I'd make dinner and eat alone, saving his plate in the microwave. I'd watch our shows by myself, sending him texts asking when he'd be home that would go unanswered for hours. Even weekends started disappearing. I need to go into the office for a few hours became an every Saturday thing. When I'd ask why so much suddenly, he'd get defensive. You know how demanding this job is, Keisha. You know I'm trying to position myself for that senior manager role. Why are you giving me a hard time about providing for us? And I'd back down, feeling guilty for questioning him, for not being supportive enough. But it wasn't just the late nights. His phone became this extension of his body, always in his pocket, always face down when he did set it down. We used to have this casual openness with our phones. His would be charging on the counter, mine on the coffee table, and neither of us thought twice about picking up the others to check the time or look something up. But suddenly, his phone had a password. Work security requirements, he explained when I noticed, and I accepted it because I trusted him. He started dressing better too. New shirts would appear in his closet, expensive ones, with designer labels. When I'd ask about them, he'd wave it off. Got a bonus, treating myself. Don't I deserve to look good? Of course he deserved to look good. I just wondered why looking good had suddenly become so important. There was new cologne too, a scent I hadn't picked out, hadn't been asked about. He'd always worn the same cologne I bought him for Christmas every year. But now there was this different smell, something expensive and unfamiliar. And the showers. Every single night when he came home, regardless of the time, the first thing he'd do was head straight for the bathroom. I'd hear the water running for 20, 30 minutes, while I sat downstairs wondering why my husband needed to wash away his day before even greeting me properly. Our physical relationship changed too. We went from being affectionate and intimate regularly to weeks passing without real connection. He was always too tired, too stressed, too full from a late dinner, too anxious about work. I'd reach for him in bed and he'd pat my hand like I was a child seeking comfort. Not tonight, babe. I'm exhausted. I told myself this was normal. Marriages go through phases, right? People get busy, stressed, focused on their careers. This was just a rough patch we'd get through once things settled down at his job. Maybe I wasn't trying hard enough. Maybe I'd gotten too comfortable, too predictable. Maybe I needed to do more to keep the spark alive. I tried. I bought new lingerie that sat unworn in my drawer. I planned date nights that he'd cancel last minute. I suggested weekend getaways that he said we couldn't afford, even though we had money in savings, and he was apparently buying expensive clothes for himself. That's when Tanya really started speaking up. Tanya had been my best friend since high school. She was fierce, protective, and had zero tolerance for nonsense. Where I was diplomatic and patient, Tanya was direct and unfiltered. We were having lunch one Saturday at our favorite cafe, and I was making excuses for why Marcus couldn't join us, again. Keisha, honey, I need you to hear me right now, okay? Really hear me. I set down my sandwich, already feeling defensive. What? Marcus is acting like a man who's got something on the side. My face must have shown my shock because she held up her hand to stop my protest. Think about it. Working late constantly, new clothes, new cologne, phone always locked and on him, no intimacy with you. Girl, I've seen this movie before, and it doesn't end well. Tanya, that's not fair. He's under a lot of pressure at work. His company is going through restructuring, and he's trying to prove himself. Has he actually told you details about this restructuring? Has he mentioned specific projects? Or does he just give vague answers and change the subject? I opened my mouth to respond and realized I couldn't. All his explanations were vague. All his work stuff was never specific enough for me to actually understand what he was dealing with. When's the last time he looked at you? Really looked at you? Like you matter? I sat there in silence because I couldn't remember. I'm not trying to hurt you. I'm trying to protect you. Just pay attention, okay? Really pay attention to what he does, not what he says. I promised her I would, but in my heart, I still didn't want to believe it. Because believing it meant facing the possibility that my marriage, my life, everything I'd built was a lie. And it was easier to make excuses than to face that truth. Then came my birthday, about 3 weeks before the prank. I didn't expect anything extravagant, but I did expect something. Marcus had always made a big deal out of my birthday. Breakfast in bed, a thoughtful gift, dinner at a nice restaurant. This year, I woke up to an empty bed. I found a birthday card on the kitchen counter and a $100 bill inside. The card just said, "Happy birthday. Treat yourself to something nice. M." Not "Love Marcus," just M. He called that afternoon from work. "Hey, happy birthday. Sorry I had to leave early. Big meeting. Did you find the card?" "Yeah, I did. Thank you." "I know it's not much. Things have been crazy. We'll celebrate properly this weekend, okay?" "Okay." That weekend never came. He worked Saturday, and Sunday he said he wasn't feeling well and stayed in bed most of the day. When I told Tanya, she actually got angry. "He gave you cash in a card? Like you're some distant relative he barely knows?" "Keisha, this is not okay. He's going through a hard time. Stop making excuses for him. You deserve better than this." And that's when something clicked in me. Not enough to fully break through my denial, but enough to plant a seed of doubt that kept growing. I started watching more carefully. The way he'd smile at texts. The way he'd take calls in another room. The way he seemed happiest when he was about to leave the house, and most irritable when he was home with me. I noticed the credit card bills showed charges at restaurants I'd never been to, at times when he said he was working late at the office. There were gas station charges in parts of town he had no reason to be in. Once, I even found a hotel receipt in his pants pocket when doing laundry. When I asked about it, he said it was from a work conference months ago that he'd forgotten to submit for reimbursement. I accepted every explanation because I wanted to, because the alternative was too painful to consider. Then one evening, I was scrolling through social media, mindlessly looking at posts, when I saw a video that would change everything. It was a woman, probably in her 30s, sitting in her car, crying. She'd just discovered her boyfriend was cheating because she'd tested him by pretending she'd lost her job. She explained how she'd told him she'd been fired, and instead of comforting her or offering support, he'd immediately panicked about money, gotten angry at her, and revealed that he'd been planning to break up with her anyway because he'd met someone else. The comments were full of stories from other women who'd done similar tests, pretending to be sick or broke or in some kind of trouble to see how their partners would respond. Some partners passed with flying colors, immediately offering support and love and solutions. Others failed spectacularly, revealing their true colors when they thought their comfortable situation was threatened. I sat there in the dental office break room, my lunch getting cold, thinking about Marcus's behavior. Would he support me if I really did lose my job? Would he be the partner he promised to be on our wedding day? Part of me was certain he would. Despite everything, despite all the signs I'd been ignoring, I wanted to believe that when it really mattered, Marcus would show up for me. The other part of me, the part that had been listening to Tanya, the part that had noticed all those little changes and inconsistencies, wondered if maybe this test would finally give me proof that everything was fine. Or proof that everything was falling apart. I rationalized it as a way to silence my doubts. If Marcus responded with love and support, I could tell Tanya she was wrong. I could stop questioning every late night and every vague explanation. I could relax back into my marriage with confidence. And if he didn't respond well, then I'd know something I perhaps already knew, but was too scared to fully acknowledge. That afternoon, sitting in that break room with afternoon light coming through the windows, I decided I'd do it. I'd tell Marcus I lost my job and watch how he reacted. He thought I was prepared for any outcome. I had no idea that this simple test would unravel my entire life by dinner time. I spent the rest of that afternoon at work distracted. Mrs. Chen came in for her cleaning, and I had to ask her to repeat herself twice because my mind was elsewhere. I apologized, blamed it on not sleeping well, and she patted my hand kindly. "You work too hard, Keisha. Make sure you take care of yourself, too." If she only knew that I was about to find out just how little someone else was taking care of me. When I left work at 5:30, I sat in my car for a few minutes before starting it. Just breathing, preparing, thinking through exactly what I'd say. "Marcus, I need to talk to you about something serious. Dr. Patterson called me into his office today. They're downsizing the practice, and I'm being let go. I'm out of a job." I said it out loud 3 or 4 times, trying to make it sound natural, trying to get the tone right, serious but not panicked, concerned but not devastated. I drove home with my heart beating faster than normal, wondering what the evening would bring. Our house looked peaceful when I pulled up. The lawn Marcus hadn't mowed in 3 weeks needed attention. The flower beds I'd planted that spring were starting to look overgrown. Little signs of neglect that I'd been overlooking, just like I'd been overlooking everything else. I went inside, changed out of my scrubs into comfortable clothes, and then I just waited. 6 o'clock came. I sent Marcus a text asking when he'd be home. Usually, he either didn't respond or gave vague answers, but this time he replied quickly. "Leaving now, home by 7. Need anything?" I wrote back, "Just need to talk to you about something. Nothing urgent." I didn't want to give anything away over text. I needed to see his face, read his body language, watch his eyes when I told him. I didn't cook dinner. I figured we'd order something afterward. Maybe have a conversation about how we'd budget until I found a new job, about how we'd get through this together. I was still, even then, hoping for the best. At exactly 7 o'clock, I heard his car in the driveway. I stood by the window and watched him get out. He checked his phone before heading to the door, smiling at whatever he saw on the screen. Then he composed his face, that smile disappearing, before putting his key in the lock. That detail would haunt me later, the way he had to remember to stop smiling before coming into his own home. "Hey, babe," he called as he came in, loosening his tie. He looked tired, but there was something else there too. An energy, a kind of alertness that he never seemed to have at home anymore. "What's for dinner?" Not, "How was your day?" Not, "You said you needed to talk. Is everything okay?" Just straight to what I could provide for him. "I thought we could order something, but first, I really need to talk to you." His expression changed. The mild pleasantness disappeared, replaced by something that looked almost like irritation. Like I was interrupting something, inconveniencing him. "Can it wait? I've had a really long day, Keisha. I just want to relax." "It's important, Marcus. It'll just take a few minutes." He let out this heavy sigh, the kind that made me feel like I was a burden, like my needs were an imposition on his valuable time. "All right, fine. What is it?" We sat down on the couch and my heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. This was it, the moment that would either reassure me or confirm my worst fears. I took a deep breath and looked him right in the eyes. "Marcus, something happened at work today. Dr. Patterson called me into his office this afternoon." I watched his face carefully. No immediate concern, just waiting for me to continue. He told me that the practice is going through financial difficulties. They're downsizing, and I'm being let go. I'm out of a job. For a moment, there was silence. I expected shock. I expected concern. I expected him to reach for me, to hold me, to say we'd figure it out together. What I got was so much worse. His face went through this rapid transformation. First, genuine surprise. Then something that looked almost like panic. Then, frighteningly quickly, his expression settled into something cold, something calculating. "You're kidding me." "No, I'm serious. I know it's a shock, and I'm still processing it myself, but—" "A shock?" His voice rose. "Keisha, how did you let this happen?" I actually pulled back, physically recoiling from the accusation in his tone. "Let it happen? Marcus, I didn't have control over this. It was a business decision." "Did you do something wrong? Did you mess up with a patient? There has to be a reason they chose you instead of someone else." Each word felt like a slap. "I didn't do anything wrong. Dr. Patterson said it was purely financial, that it had nothing to do with my performance." "Right, because they're always honest when they fire people." He stood up and started pacing, his hand running over his head in agitation. "This is just great. This is just perfect timing." I sat there watching him pace, watching him process this news, and not once did he look at me with compassion or concern. "Do you understand what kind of position this puts us in? Marcus, we have savings. We have your income. We'll be tight for a while, but we can manage until I find something new." "My income?" He actually laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think my salary alone is enough to maintain everything? The mortgage, the car payments, the credit cards, all the bills? We've always been careful with money. Our expenses aren't that high. You've been careful with money. Some of us have expenses you don't know about." Everything in me went completely still. What expenses? He froze too, realizing he'd said something he shouldn't have. Nothing. Forget it. I'm just stressed. No, you specifically said expenses I don't know about. What does that mean, Marcus? It means I'm under pressure, okay? It means I'm trying to figure out how we're going to survive on one income, and instead of thinking about solutions, you're interrogating me. I stood up then, feeling anger starting to cut through the hurt. Interrogating you? I just lost my job, and you haven't said one word of comfort or support. You've blamed me, questioned me, and now you're talking about secret expenses. What is going on? His phone buzzed in his pocket, and I saw him glance at it instinctively. Answer me, Marcus. You want the truth? His face twisted into something ugly, something I'd never seen before. Maybe if you'd worked harder, if you'd made yourself more valuable to the practice, they would have kept you. Maybe if you'd put in the effort to advance your career instead of just coasting, we wouldn't be in this situation. I felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room. Coasting? I've worked at that practice for 8 years. I've taken extra training. I've built relationships with patients. I've done everything. Obviously not everything, or you'd still have a job. I felt tears starting, but I refused to let them fall. Is this who you really are? Is this how you see me? He pulled out his phone, looked at the screen, and his jaw tightened. I need to make a call. Marcus, we're in the middle of a conversation. I said I need to. Make a call, Keisha. We'll talk about this later. Right now, I need to figure out what we're going to do about this mess you've created. Mess I've created? Later, he said firmly, already heading for the stairs. Marcus, don't you dare walk away from me right now. He ignored me completely, taking the stairs 2 at a time. I heard our bedroom door close, then the lock click into place. I stood there in our living room, in the house we'd bought together, surrounded by the life we'd built, and I had never felt more alone in my entire life. And that's when it really started sinking in. This wasn't just a bad reaction to stressful news. This wasn't just him being caught off guard and responding poorly. This was who he really was when the mask slipped. I sat back down on the couch, my mind racing. What expenses didn't I know about? Why had he seemed almost relieved to have a reason to be angry at me? Why had checking his phone been more important than comforting his wife? Tanya's words came back to me. Pay attention to what he does, not what he says. I pulled out my phone and texted her. You were right. Something is very wrong. Her response came within seconds. What happened? Are you okay? I gave her a quick summary of the prank and his reaction. My phone immediately rang. It was Tanya. Keisha, listen to me very carefully. This is not normal. This is not okay. Something is definitely going on. I kept my voice low, aware that Marcus was just upstairs. I know, I can feel it. You need to find out what, tonight, while you have the element of surprise. I don't know if I want to find out. Maybe I'm better off not knowing. No, baby, you're never better off not knowing. The truth might hurt, but at least you can make decisions based on reality instead of lies. She was right. I knew she was right. I need to go. I'll call you later. I'm here. Whatever you need, whatever you find, I'm here. I hung up and sat there listening. Upstairs, I could hear Marcus's voice, muffled through the floor. He was talking to someone, his tone completely different than it had been with me. Warm, gentle, almost pleading. That's when I made the decision. I stood up, my legs shaky but determined, and walked quietly toward his home office. Marcus's home office was a small room off the living room. He'd set it up when we bought the house, claiming he needed a dedicated space for work-from-home days. In reality, he barely used it anymore. preferring to take his laptop to coffee shops or claiming he needed to be at the actual office. I pushed open the door, my heart hammering so hard I thought he might hear it upstairs. The room smelled like his cologne, that new expensive one I hadn't bought. His laptop was closed on his desk, his briefcase beside it. Everything was neat, organized, carefully curated. I stood there for a moment, my hand hovering over the laptop. This felt wrong, invasive, a violation of privacy and trust. But then I almost laughed at that thought. Trust? What trust was I violating when he'd clearly already violated ours? I opened the laptop, expecting to need a password. It opened right up to his email, already logged in. And there, at the top of his inbox, was an email from someone named Jasmine. Subject line, "Can't wait for this weekend." I stared at that subject line for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. My hand, trembling now, moved the mouse and clicked it open. "Baby, I know you said you need to handle things at home, but I'm getting impatient. You promised me we'd tell her soon. You promised me we'd start our real life together. I didn't sign up to be your secret. This weekend at the cabin better be about making a real plan, or I'm done waiting. I love you, but I need more than stolen moments and empty promises. Jay." I read it 3 times, each time hoping the words would somehow rearrange themselves into something innocent. My hands moved almost automatically, scrolling down through his emails. There were dozens from her, weeks of emails, months. "That dress you bought me is perfect. Can't wait to wear it for you this weekend. Thank you for taking care of my car payment this month, baby. You're so good to me. Last night was amazing. I hate that you have to go back to her. Soon, though. Soon it'll just be us." I felt physically sick, my stomach churning, my vision starting to blur with tears I was fighting to hold back. I kept scrolling, finding more and more evidence of a whole relationship I'd known nothing about. There were hotel confirmations, restaurant reservations for 2, receipts from jewelry stores for items I'd never received, confirmation for weekend getaways to places I'd suggested we go, that he'd said we couldn't afford. I started piecing together the timeline. The emails started about 7 months ago, right around the time he'd started working late and acting distant. The first email I could find was from him to her. "It was great meeting you at the conference. You made those boring seminars so much more interesting. Would love to grab coffee sometime if you're interested." Innocent enough on the surface. "Coffee sounds perfect. I'd love to hear more about your work and logistics. And maybe we can talk about more than just work?" From there, the emails got progressively more familiar, more intimate, more damning. By email 3, he was telling her he was separated. "My marriage has been over for a while. We're just living together until we can figure out the financial aspects of divorce. It's complicated, but I'm working on it." By email 10, he was telling her he loved her. "I never believed in love at first sight until I met you. You make me feel alive in ways I haven't felt in years." By email 20, they were booking hotel rooms together. I grabbed my phone and started taking pictures. Screenshot after screenshot, my hands shaking so badly I had to retry several. I photographed the emails, the receipts, the hotel confirmations, everything. Then I remembered, we had joint credit cards. I logged into our credit card account on his computer, and there it was, thousands of dollars in charges I'd never seen on our statements. He had a separate card, one in just his name, that I hadn't known about. Charges at expensive restaurants, jewelry stores, women's clothing stores, hotels in the city and in mountain towns nearby. I did quick math in my head. In 7 months, he'd spent at least $15,000 on this woman and their relationship. $15,000. The exact amount we were supposed to be saving for our future, for our baby fund. Then I found something that made my blood run cold. An email from a real estate agent, dated just 2 weeks ago. "Hi, Marcus. Just following up on the condo viewing next month. The seller is motivated and willing to negotiate. Based on what you told me about your timeline, planning to move in after the first of the year, I think we can work out a deal that fits your needs. The location you mentioned wanting to be close to is perfect for Jasmine's commute. Looking forward to showing you both the property on November 15th. Best, Richard. November 15th was 3 weeks away. He was planning to leave me. Not just emotionally, not just having an affair, but actively planning his exit. Finding a place to live with her, moving forward with a whole new life. Overhead, I heard the shower turn on. Panic shot through me. I quickly closed all the tabs, closed the laptop, exactly as I'd found it. I slipped out of the office and was back on the couch, my phone hidden, my face composed, by the time I heard the bathroom door open upstairs. A few minutes later, Marcus came down in his pajamas, his hair wet from the shower. "You okay?" he asked, and the false concern in his voice made me want to scream. But I didn't. Instead, I looked up at him and said calmly, "Yeah, just trying to process everything." He actually looked relieved. "Listen, I'm sorry I got upset earlier. This is hard news, and I reacted badly. We'll figure it out, okay? But you need to start looking for a new job right away. Like, tomorrow. Don't take any time to wallow in this." What he really meant was, get a job so I don't have to feel guilty about leaving you broke when I move in with my girlfriend next month. I just nodded. "Okay." "Good. I'm exhausted. I'm going to bed." I watched him head back upstairs. This man who'd promised to be my partner through everything, who'd stood in my mother's backyard and vowed to never let me walk alone. And I'd never felt more alone in my entire life. I sat there on that couch for hours after he went to bed. Not crying, not yet. Just processing, planning, thinking through every possible next step. Around midnight, I texted Tanya. "I found everything. It's worse than we thought. Can you come over tomorrow?" Her response was immediate, despite the late hour. "I'll be there at 9 a.m. Do you need me to come now?" "No, I need tonight to think." "Okay, but Keisha, I'm proud of you for finding out. That took courage." Courage. Was it courage to discover your husband was actively planning to abandon you? Or was it just survival instinct finally kicking in after months of ignoring every red flag? That's when I finally let myself cry. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet tears falling while I sat in the dark living room of the house we'd bought together, surrounded by the life I'd thought we were building. I cried for the man I'd thought I married, who apparently had never really existed. I cried for 12 years of my life invested in someone who could betray me so completely. I cried for the future I'd imagined, the children we'd planned, the growing old together we'd promised, the partnership I'd believed in. By the time dawn started lightening the sky, I was done crying. Now I was just angry, and I was ready to do something about it. At 5 a.m., I got up from the couch where I'd spent the night and went to the kitchen. I made coffee, the routine motions giving me something to focus on. While the coffee brewed, I started making lists in my head. What I knew, what I needed to do, who I needed to tell. I sent Tanya that text asking her to come over. Her response came almost immediately, even at that early hour. Then I sent an email to Dr. Patterson. I explained that I was dealing with a personal emergency and needed the day off. I apologized for the short notice and promised to make up the hours. His response came within the hour. "Keisha, take whatever time you need. Family comes first. We'll manage here. Let me know if you need anything at all." Even in the middle of discovering my life was a lie, I felt grateful for him, for a workplace where I was valued and supported. What a contrast to my own home. Then I had an idea, An idea that felt risky, but necessary. I opened my email and composed a message to Jasmine. My fingers moved across my phone keyboard with surprising steadiness. Hi, Jasmine. This is Keisha, Marcus's wife. I found your emails with him. I know about the affair, the plans, all of it. I think it's time the three of us had an honest conversation. Come to my house today at 2 p.m. The address is 428 Maple Drive. If you don't show up, my next call will be to your workplace, and I'll make sure everyone there knows exactly what kind of person you are. Keisha. My finger hovered over the send button for a long moment. Then I pressed it. I didn't know if she'd respond. I didn't know if she'd show up. But I needed her to understand that I knew, that I wasn't going to quietly disappear while they built their new life on the ashes of mine. 10 minutes later, my phone dinged with a response. I'll be there. Good. At 7, Marcus came downstairs for his usual morning routine. He was dressed for work, looking put together and professional. You're up early, he commented, grabbing his travel mug for coffee. Couldn't sleep much. Yeah, well, job loss will do that. Make sure you start calling around today, okay? Check with some of the other dental offices in the area. Marcus? I called as he headed for the door. Yeah. What time will you be home tonight? He paused, suspicion flickering across his face. Why? Just wondering. I might need to talk through some job possibilities with you. He relaxed. Probably around 6, but text me if you need to talk earlier. Perfect. That gave me time for my 2 o'clock meeting with Jasmine, and then I could call him home for the real confrontation. He kissed my forehead in that automatic way before leaving, and I had to resist the urge to pull away. The door closed behind him, and I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. At 9 a.m. sharp, Tanya knocked on my door. She came in carrying a bag from our favorite bakery and 2 more coffees. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. Oh, honey, tell me everything. So I did. I showed her everything I'd found. The emails, the receipts, the condo listing, all of it. Tanya's face went through a range of emotions. Shock, anger, disgust. That dirty, low-down cheating. She went through a string of words I won't repeat here. I need you to stay calm, I said. Because Jasmine is coming here at 2, and then I'm calling Marcus home, and I want you here for all of it. You invited her here? Tanya looked at me with something like pride. Girl, you are handling this like an absolute queen. I don't feel like a queen. I feel like my life just imploded. Your life didn't implode. Marcus's lies imploded. There's a difference. She held my hands. You are still you. Strong, smart, capable, worthy. His betrayal doesn't change any of that. How am I supposed to face him, knowing everything I know? With your head held high, because you didn't do anything wrong. He did. And now he gets to face the consequences. We spent the next few hours planning exactly what I'd say, how I'd handle it if things got heated, what my next legal steps would be. Tanya even helped me find a divorce lawyer and set up a consultation for the next day. What would I do without you? I asked her at one point. You'd still be strong, she said simply. You'd still survive. But I'm glad you don't have to do it alone. At 1 p.m., we started watching the clock. I was nervous, my stomach in knots. This was really happening. In an hour, I'd be confronting my husband's mistress. In a few hours, I'd be confronting my husband. There was no turning back from this, no pretending I didn't know, no more comfortable denial. But I was ready, or as ready as I'd ever be. At exactly 2 p.m., a silver Honda pulled up in front of my house. I watched from the window as a young woman got out of the car. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 25, with long box braids that fell past her shoulders. She was beautiful in that effortless way some women are. Clear skin, bright eyes, a figure that showed she spent time at the gym. I hated that my first instinct was to compare myself to her, to wonder what she had that I didn't. "Don't," Tanya said quietly beside me, reading my mind. "Don't you dare make this about whether you're pretty enough or young enough. This is about him being a lying cheat." She was right. I nodded and went to answer the door. The doorbell rang, and I opened it before she could ring again. "Hi, I'm Jasmine, I know. Come in." She walked in hesitantly, her purse clutched tight in her hands. Her eyes swept over our living room, taking in the pictures of Marcus and me on the walls, the evidence of our shared life together. She startled when she saw Tanya sitting on the couch. "I thought this was just going to be us." "This is my best friend Tanya. She's here for support. Sit down." Jasmine sat on the edge of the couch, perched like she might bolt at any second. For a moment, we just looked at each other, the wife and the mistress, two women who'd been lied to in different ways. "How long?" I asked, getting straight to the point. 7 months. 7 months. Over half a year of my husband living a double life. "Did you know he was married? From the beginning?" She hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything. "Not at first. He told me he was divorced, that it was finalized, and he was just waiting to sell the house with his ex." Creative. "When I found out the truth about 3 months ago, I tried to end it." Her voice cracked a little. "But he said he loved me, that his marriage was dead anyway, that he was just working up the courage to leave. He said you two were more like roommates than spouses." Tanya made a disgusted sound. "And you believed him?" Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. "I'm not proud of this. I never wanted to be the other woman. But he made me feel special, important. He said I was his future." Despite everything, despite the anger and hurt and betrayal, I felt a flicker of something like pity for her. She'd been lied to too. Not the same way I had, but lied to nonetheless. "What did he tell you about me?" She shifted uncomfortably. "He said you were controlling with money, that you'd let yourself go, that you weren't interested in intimacy anymore. He said the marriage had been dead for years, and he'd just been too comfortable to leave." I actually laughed, a bitter sound. "Interesting, because I've been trying to initiate intimacy for months while he rejected me. And I've been the one suggesting we go out, take trips, have experiences, while he claimed we couldn't afford it." Jasmine's face changed as understanding dawned. He told me he was taking care of my car payment because his ex-wife, because you were bleeding him dry in the separation. We have joint accounts. I pay half of everything. And I had no idea he was giving you money until I found the credit card statements last night." She looked genuinely horrified. "Oh my God, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know." And I believed her, because Marcus was good at lying. He'd been lying to me for 12 years about who he really was. "He doesn't know you're here," I said. "But he will in," I checked my watch, "over 10 minutes. I called him home for an emergency." "What? No, I can't see him. I can't." "You came here. You're involved in this. You get to sit through the consequences too." She opened her mouth to respond, but then we all heard it, a car pulling into the driveway. "He's early," Tanya noted. All three of us turned to watch through the window as Marcus got out of his car, his face confused and concerned as he hurried toward the door. He used his key, pushing open the door. "Keisha, what's the emergency? Are you—" He stopped dead when he saw Jasmine sitting on our couch. All the color drained from his face. What is this?" I stood up, feeling surprisingly calm now that the moment had arrived. "This is called transparency, Marcus. Something you should try sometime." "Keisha, I can explain." "You can explain 7 months of cheating? You can explain the condo you're planning to buy with her. You can explain spending $15,000 on hotels and gifts and restaurant dinners while telling me we couldn't afford a simple vacation. His mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Oh, and you can definitely explain how you screamed at me yesterday for losing a job, which I didn't actually lose, by the way. It was a test, while you've been financing a whole separate relationship behind my back. You didn't lose your job? Nope. Surprise. I was testing to see how you'd react if I really needed your support. And wow, did you show me exactly who you are? Baby, please, this isn't what you think. Jasmine stood up suddenly, her voice shaking but surprisingly strong. Don't do that to her. Marcus turned on her, his face twisting into something ugly. Jasmine, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. She looked at me. He told me you two were separated. He told me you knew about us and didn't care. He told me a lot of things that were clearly lies. In that moment, I actually felt respect for her. It took courage to speak up against someone you'd loved, someone who'd manipulated you. Keisha, listen to me. Marcus's voice took on that wheedling, desperate tone. I made mistakes, okay? Big mistakes. But we can work through this. 12 years of marriage, you're just going to throw that away? I'm not throwing anything away. My voice was steady, strong. You already did that. Every late night you claimed was work. Every shower you took as soon as you got home. Every time you checked your phone instead of looking at me. Every dollar you spent on her instead of on us. I'll end it. Right now, it's over. He turned to Jasmine. Tell her it's over. Jasmine picked up her purse, her hands shaking. It is over. It's been over since the moment I realized you'd been lying to both of us. She looked at me. Keisha, I'm truly sorry for my part in hurting you. You deserve so much better than this. She walked to the door, and neither Marcus nor I tried to stop her. The door closed behind her with a quiet click. Now it was just the three of us, me, Marcus, and Tanya, sitting silently as a witness to the end of my marriage. Keisha, please. Marcus's voice cracked. I love you. It was just a stupid mistake, a moment of weakness that got out of hand. 7 months of moments? Planning to move into a condo with her? That's not weakness, Marcus. That's building a whole new life while pretending to have one with me. His desperation morphed into anger, the way it does when manipulation stops working. You know what? Maybe I did step out. Can you blame me? You're always tired, always talking about saving money for some future that never comes, never wanting to be spontaneous. She made me feel alive again. Oh, hell no. Tanya stood up, her voice deadly calm. Don't you dare try to make this her fault. Nobody asked you, Tanya. This is between me and my wife. No, I said quietly, but with absolute certainty. It's not. There is no me and my wife anymore. I want you to pack a bag and leave. Tonight. This is my house too, which is why I already called a lawyer this morning and have a consultation tomorrow. We'll be starting divorce proceedings. You can stay with Jasmine or a hotel or wherever you've been spending your time. But you can't stay here. Keisha, you're being irrational. You're upset, I understand, but I've never been more rational in my life. For the first time in months, maybe years, I'm seeing things clearly. And what I see is a man who doesn't value me, doesn't respect me, and certainly doesn't love me the way I deserve to be loved. Fine. His face hardened. But you're going to regret this. You think you can make it on your own? You think anyone else is going to want you at your age, with your baggage? I actually smiled. Marcus, I don't need anyone else to want me. I need to want myself. And I can't do that while being with someone who sees me as a burden instead of a partner. You'll come crawling back. You'll see how hard it is out there and realize what you had. What I had was a lie. I'd rather be alone with the truth than partnered with someone living a double life. Something in his face changed then. He realized I was serious, that his usual tactics weren't going to work, that this was really happening. Fine, I'll pack my things. He stormed upstairs, and we could hear him throwing things around, making a show of his anger. Tanya and I sat in silence, listening to the sounds of my marriage physically ending. 25 minutes later, he came back down with 2 duffel bags and his laptop bag. He stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at me like he expected me to change my mind. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." "No," I said clearly. "Marrying you was. This is me correcting it." He left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the pictures on the wall. For a long moment after he left, Tanya and I just sat in silence. "You okay?" she asked quietly. "No, but I will be." And then finally, I let myself break down. I cried for what felt like hours. All the strength and composure I'd held on to through the confrontation crumbled, and I sobbed into Tanya's shoulder. I wasn't crying for Marcus, not really. I was crying for 12 years of my life invested in someone who'd betrayed me so completely. For the future I'd imagined that would never exist. For the person I'd thought I'd married, who'd apparently never been real. Tanya just held me, not saying anything, not offering platitudes, just being there. When the tears finally slowed, I felt hollowed out, but somehow lighter. "I'm exhausted," I admitted. "I know, honey. Let's get you to bed. I'll stay tonight, okay? You shouldn't be alone." I was grateful beyond words. That night, lying in my bed, just mine now, not ours, I couldn't sleep despite the exhaustion. My mind kept replaying moments from our marriage, seeing them in this new, harsh light. All those times he'd blamed me for being suspicious when I questioned his late nights. The way he'd make me feel guilty for wanting his attention. How he'd positioned himself as the victim of a demanding, controlling wife, when the reality was so different. I'd been gaslighted for months, made to feel crazy for noticing things that were absolutely real. The next morning, Tanya made breakfast while I got ready for my lawyer consultation. The lawyer, a woman named Patricia Chen, was kind but straightforward. "With the evidence you have, the emails, the financial records, the proof of him spending marital assets on an affair, you're in a strong position," she explained. "Georgia is a no-fault divorce state, but these factors will matter when it comes to asset division." She helped me file for divorce and subpoena Marcus's credit card records and bank statements. When those records came in 2 weeks later, the full extent of his spending became clear. $15,000 over 7 months had been my estimate. The reality was closer to $23,000. Jewelry, designer clothes, a weekend trip to Miami, another to New Orleans, car repairs for Jasmine's vehicle, rent payments for what I later learned was a studio apartment he'd been keeping as a private space for them. $23,000 that should have gone toward our future, our home, our dreams. The judge was not impressed during our preliminary hearing. I kept the house, Marcus got his car, and about 30% of what remained in our savings after his affair spending spree, which wasn't much. He tried to argue for more, claiming he'd contributed more financially over the years. My lawyer shut that down quickly with the credit card statements showing how much marital money he'd wasted on his affair. He left that courtroom looking like a man who'd finally realized actions have consequences. About a month after our confrontation, Jasmine reached out to me. She sent a message through social media, and I almost didn't open it. "Keisha, I know you have no reason to care about this, but I wanted you to know that it's really over between Marcus and me. After everything came out, he tried to move in with me and expected me to support him financially while he figured things out. When I said no, he got mean, called me names, accused me of using him, told me I'd ruined his life. Thank you for opening my eyes to who he really is. I'm sorry for my part in hurting you. I hope you're doing well. I stared at that message for a long time before responding. Finally, I wrote back, "Thank you for telling me. I hope you learned the same lesson I did, that how someone treats others when they think they can get away with it shows you who they really are. Take care of yourself." She wrote back, "I did learn that, and I'm in therapy now, trying to figure out why I was willing to accept so little from someone who offered even less. I hope you find happiness." I never responded to that message, but I appreciated the closure it provided. The hardest part of the divorce wasn't the legal process or the asset division. It was sitting in my house now, and relearning who I was without him. For 12 years, I'd been half of Keisha and Marcus. I'd made decisions based on we and us. Now there was just me, and I had to figure out who that person was. I started therapy in the second week after Marcus left. My therapist, Dr. Williams, was a soft-spoken woman in her 50s who helped me see patterns I'd been blind to. "You diminished yourself in that marriage," she said during one session. "You made yourself smaller to make him comfortable. You ignored your own needs to avoid conflict. That's not partnership, that's self-erasure." She was right. I'd stopped buying books I wanted because Marcus said we needed to save money while he bought expensive clothes. I'd stopped suggesting trips because he said we couldn't afford them while he was taking his girlfriend to Miami. I'd stopped asking for his time because he made me feel guilty for needing attention. Rebuilding myself was slow, painful work. I started small. I bought a book I wanted just because I wanted it. I took myself to a movie Marcus had refused to see. I signed up for a painting class I'd been interested in for years. I reconnected with friends I'd drifted away from during my marriage, realizing how much of my social life had been sacrificed to avoid Marcus's displeasure at me spending time away from home. My mother, who'd been suspicious of Marcus for years, but had kept quiet to avoid causing conflict, was surprisingly unsurprised by the divorce. "Baby, I never liked how he made you explain yourself all the time," she admitted over Sunday dinner. "Like you needed permission to exist. A good partner builds you up, not tears you down." I wished she'd said something earlier, but I understood why she hadn't. Sometimes people have to discover painful truths on their own before they're ready to accept them. Work became a refuge. Dr. Patterson and the whole office rallied around me during the divorce. "You're family here," Dr. Patterson told me. "You take whatever time you need, and your job will be here waiting." Even patients noticed something was different and offered quiet support. Mrs. Chen, who'd seen me that distracted day before everything fell apart, brought me homemade soup one afternoon. "Divorce is a death," she said simply. "Let yourself grieve, then let yourself heal." 6 months after that Tuesday morning prank that changed everything, I was doing okay. Some days were still hard. Some nights, the house felt too quiet, and I wondered if I'd ever trust anyone enough to try again. Sometimes I'd see a couple laughing together and feel a wave of grief for what I'd thought I had, but never did. But more and more, I had days where I woke up feeling grateful. Grateful that I'd discovered the truth before we had children. Grateful that I'd found out before I'd invested even more years. Grateful that I was free to build a life based on truth instead of pretty lies. I'd reconnected with hobbies I'd abandoned. Joined a book club where I met other women with stories of survival and strength. Started taking weekend trips with Tanya just because we could. And slowly, carefully, I started feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Happy. Not the dramatic, external validation kind of happiness, but the quiet, steady happiness that comes from knowing yourself and respecting your own worth. Today, as I'm telling you this story, I'm sitting in my living room, my space, filled with things I chose, decorated how I want it. The pictures of Marcus and me are gone, replaced by photos of me with friends, with my mother, with Tanya. There's artwork I picked out on the walls, plants I'm nurturing in the windows. Sometimes people ask me if I regret doing that prank, if I wish I'd stayed in comfortable ignorance. The answer is always no. Because yes, the truth destroyed my marriage. But that marriage was already destroyed. I just couldn't see it yet. The prank didn't break anything that wasn't already broken. It just turned on the lights so I could see the cracks I'd been stumbling over in the dark. I learned that loyalty isn't tested in the good times, but in crisis. And Marcus failed that test spectacularly. I learned that sometimes the worst things that happen to us become the doorways to our best life. I learned that a test designed to confirm my security instead revealed my prison. And sometimes that's exactly what we need, to have our comfortable illusions shattered so we can see reality clearly. I learned that I am stronger than I thought, braver than I believed, and worthy of so much more than I was accepting. If you're listening to this story and seeing yourself in it, if you're recognizing the signs I ignored for so long, please hear me when I say this. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Your body, your intuition, knows things your mind is trying to rationalize away. And if you discover betrayal, remember that their choices say everything about them and nothing about your worth. You are not too old to start over. You are not too damaged to deserve better. You are not too invested to walk away from someone who doesn't value you. Age is just a number, and every day is a new opportunity to choose yourself, to choose truth, to choose dignity. That Tuesday morning, I thought I was testing Marcus's loyalty. What I was really doing was testing my own strength. And you know what? I passed. The marriage ended, but I began. And sometimes that's exactly how it's supposed to go. I don't hate Marcus anymore. I don't love him either. Mostly, I just feel nothing when I think about him. And that's the greatest freedom of all. Because indifference means I've healed. It means he no longer has power over my emotions, my peace, my sense of self. The last I heard, he's still single, still looking for someone to take care of him while he pursues his dreams at their expense. Jasmine, according to mutual acquaintances, is doing well, in therapy, dating someone who treats her with respect, learning to value herself. And me? I'm building a life that's completely my own. Maybe I'll date again someday. Maybe I'll even fall in love again. But if I do, it'll be with someone who sees partnership the way I do, as two whole people choosing to walk together, not one person diminishing themselves to prop up another. It'll be with someone who shows up in crisis, not someone who creates more chaos. It'll be with someone who knows that love is a verb, not just a feeling, something you do every day in small ways, not just something you say when it's convenient. And if I never find that person, that's okay too. Because I'm learning to be everything I need. And anyone who joins my life will be an addition, not a completion. I'm already complete on my own. So thank you for listening to my story, this real-life story about betrayal and discovery, and the strength we don't know we have until we're forced to use it. If this emotional story resonated with you, if it touched something in your heart or made you think about your own relationships, or gave you courage to face a truth you've been avoiding, please leave a like and subscribe for more family drama stories told with honesty and heart. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my situation? Have you ever discovered a truth that changed everything? How did you find the strength to move forward? I read every single comment, and your stories, your support, your shared experiences mean the world to me. We're building a community here of people who believe in truth, in dignity, in the courage it takes to choose yourself when everyone expects you to choose comfort instead. Remember, your value isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. Your worth is inherent, unchangeable, not dependent on anyone's recognition or appreciation. You have more power than you think, more strength than you know, more options than you believe. And sometimes an ending is actually a beginning in disguise. Thank you for being here, for listening, for being part of this journey with me. Take care of yourself, treat yourself with the kindness you deserve, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, choose peace, choose truth, choose yourself. You're worth it, I promise.